In 1991, just as the beat-em-up genre started peaking in popularity, Sega teamed up with Marvel to create an ambitious game featuring Spider-Man and his friends. Part beat-em-up, part platformer, it would become the first time Marvel Comics hit the arcade floor, foreshadowing an entire decade of games featuring the comic giant's iconic properties. What's up, true believers? Steve here with another episode of Arcade Economy, the series where we look at arcade games from years past to determine just how much they cost to beat and how fair they were to our wallets. Last time on Arcade Economy, we saved the island nation of Cercia from a military coup in Time Crisis. Today, we're heading to the Big Apple to join Spidey and his friends in Sega's Spider-Man arcade game. Did Spider-Man deliver a friendly neighborhood budget, or was it more corrupt than the Kingpin's time in office? Hey, it's not easy writing these punny segue analogies, I'm trying here. Anyway, let's find out. Now, technically, this game is called Spider-Man the video game, but that's kind of silly considering that there have been a lot of Spider-Man video games that have released after this, so for the sake of this video, I'm just going to refer to this game mostly as Spider-Man the arcade game. Let's flash back to 1989. Sega was gearing up to release a new Shinobi game, The Revenge of Shinobi, on their brand spanking new 16-bit console, the Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive for those of you outside of North America. The developers behind the game decided to add a shape-shifting boss named Metamorpher, who would take the form of two of the biggest comic book characters of all time, Spider-Man and Batman. The devs did this without obtaining the correct licenses from Marvel or DC, so Sega's legal team set out on a mission to avoid a copyright lawsuit and obtain said licenses. And it just so happened that Sega already had their eye on Spider-Man and were having meetings with Marvel to bring the wall crawler to their consoles. Marvel, who were going through some financial issues at the time, were more than happy to grant Sega the license for Spider-Man and even gave them some feedback for how to use the character. For the Batman license, though, Sega wouldn't have been able to secure that even if they tried, since the console rights for Batman were tied up with developer Sunsoft. This resulted in Batman being revised in future releases to instead depict Go Nagai's Devilman. With the Spider-Man license in hand, they could now keep him in Revenge of Shinobi, and they put into production two Spider-Man games: The Amazing Spider-Man vs. the Kingpin for home consoles, and Spider-Man the video game for arcades. Spider-Man the arcade game would be developed by Sega's internal arcade team, with game design being led by Ropyaku Surumi. The team built the game on the Sega System 32 hardware. This was a powerful 32-bit arcade board that allowed for large, beautifully animated character sprites and vibrant visuals. It's the same board that would later go on to power games like Golden Axe: The Revenge of Death Adder and Jurassic Park. At the time, the arcade scene was seeing a spike in popularity among beat-em-up games, specifically ones based on American licensed IPs, thanks to the success of Konami's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and The Simpsons. So moving forward with Spider-Man made a ton of sense for Sega. But that wasn't always the plan. Initially, this game was going to be a two-player action platformer, similar to games like Capcom's Strider or Namco's Rolling Thunder. It was set to feature Spider-Man and Black Cat. However, the licensing negotiations between Sega and Marvel were happening over in the United States, and Sega of Japan's development team was largely left out of the room. During these meetings, Marvel negotiated the addition of two extra characters, those characters being Hawkeye, going by the super slick nickname of H.I., and Namor the Submariner. Or is it Namor? Marvel mandated that these two characters be added into the game, and because of this mandate, Sega developers had to completely revise the game's foundation, shifting from a two-player action platformer to a four-player beat-em-up to accommodate the new heroes. Now, I don't know why they just didn't keep it as a four-player action platformer. I'm assuming they wanted to jump on the beat-em-up train since that was what was popular at the time, so I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel had some type of a say in this as well. This is actually why the game dynamically zooms out into platforming section. It's a leftover mechanic from Sega's original Strider-like vision for the game. In September 1991, Spider-Man released into arcades to high praise and found success in its first year. Although, the arcade industry moved very fast, and I'm not sure this game had the longevity that Sega had hoped. It wouldn't be long before that Spider-Man arcade would be pushed aside for other beat-em-ups like X-Men and the fighting game boom that followed in Street Fighter II's success. The Amazing Spider-Man vs. the Kingpin released on Sega Genesis Mega Drive just a month earlier, and would go on to get a definitive version and a new rockin' soundtrack a few years later on the Sega CD. Unfortunately, the arcade game never made its way to home consoles. The Genesis just wasn't powerful enough to keep up with the game's 32-bit demand. Now, there were plans to bring the game to the 32X, but those were scrapped and we instead got Spider-Man Web of Fire, the last game to release for the add-on. This game is just okay at best, but due to its rarity, it is one of the most valued Spider-Man games, selling for upwards of $2,000 on resale markets. Spider-Man the video game and The Amazing Spider-Man vs. the Kingpin kickstarted the wall crawler's success in the video game industry. Spidey would go on to release many different titles across multiple platforms for years to come. And if you're into video game collecting, I recently did a video around my hunt for collecting the best version of every Spider-Man game, so this is my shameless plug. Please feel free to check that out if that floats your boat. The storyline for the Spider-Man arcade game consists of a paper-thin plot that basically serves as the perfect excuse for Sega to mash together as many iconic Spider-Man villains as possible into a single adventure. And for that, I appreciate it. The story kicks off when a powerful mystical artifact, referred to as the Sorcerer's Stone, falls into New York City. Naturally, this causes a scramble among Spidey's greatest adversaries to claim the relic and control its power. Spider-Man and his allies must set out on a mission to track down the artifact before it falls into the wrong hands. The hero's first major threat is Kingpin, who has managed to get his hands on the stone, but after fighting their way to him and taking him down, the group discovers that the true mastermind pulling the strings is none other than Dr. Doom. Doom has successfully obtained the artifact and plans to use it to boost his already formidable powers, allowing him to finally achieve his ultimate dream of world domination. The arcade cabinet features up to 4 players, each equipped with an 8-way joystick and 2 buttons: jump and attack. Upon entering their credits, players get to choose between 4 different characters, each with their own unique moveset. These include Spider-Man, Black Cat, Hawkeye, and Namor the Submariner. Each character can perform a multi-hit combo, perform a back attack mid-combo, can attack in air, has a diving or swinging air attack, and has a more powerful special move that can be performed when pushing jump and attack together. Like most beat-em-ups of the time, the special move will take away from a small portion of your life. This game took a cue from Gauntlet, representing your life meter as a number that slowly ticks away even if you aren't taking damage. Luckily, there are a good amount of health pickups throughout each level to raise your health back up, but it's still something that I'm not really a fan of. When your health does get dangerously low, it will start to blink red, warning you that you are about to die. I also want to note that when you do have 1 point of health remaining, you can still use your special attack and it won't take away any health to kill you. This is probably the best strategy to do here, is just kind of spam that attack when you have 1 point so that you can take out as many enemies as possible. Now, where this game really sticks out among beat-em-ups of its time is in its changing of gameplay. As you progress each level, the camera will zoom out and the game mechanics shift to an action platformer, giving each character the ability to attack with projectiles and climb on ledges. It's something that does keep the gameplay fresh, but I'm not entirely sure it was necessary. There is a good amount of enemy variety in the game, with a large number of Spider-Man villains showing up. The game's disposable henchmen are original characters created by Sega. The most commonly fought foes have been nicknamed the Howling Goons, and well, it's easy to see why. You'll also go up against these big Buddha-looking guys, Kingpin mobsters dressed like they're from the 40s, and these questionable-looking monkeys in pants. Among the bosses, you'll go up against the likes of Scorpion, Venom, the Lizard, Electro, Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, Kingpin, Sandman, Hobgoblin, and Dr. Doom. Most of the bosses are pretty easy to beat. The ones that gave me trouble were the ones that I had to face in platformer mode. My main gripe with this entire game is just how slow the characters move. This game is a slog. It's like if Spider-Man drank sleepy time tea before going out to fight crime. So in many cases, you just can't move out of the way of oncoming attacks. This becomes more true in the platformer mode. When I went up against Venom as the first platformer boss, there were times where I just couldn't get out of the way. Electro was a little bit easier. His attacks deal a ton of damage, but if you keep your distance, you should be okay. Just try and take out the henchmen and robots around him to avoid their attacks. For Dr. Octopus, I don't even know how to strategize here if I'm being honest. I got too close to him and couldn't escape his tentacles, so I just ate the life and attacked him until he was defeated. Hobgoblin is also a little hard because you fight him on top of a helicopter with turrets. He is constantly zooming on and off screen, and you're just too slow to avoid the damage here. Again, I just ate the turret damage and tried to focus on old Hobby. In a second playthrough that I was doing for B-roll footage for this video, I noticed that if you go to this section on the helicopter, you'll be too far away for the turrets to hit you, and then you can just take aim of Hobgoblin as he comes into frame. For the beat-em-up bosses, Scorpion, Venom, and the Lizard are basically just glorified henchmen. They're all really easy to defeat, just attack them and avoid letting them get in any hits. Green Goblin might be the most difficult boss in the game. He has 3 phases. His first is pretty easy, he attacks you hand to hand. In his second, he'll use his glider to zip in and out of frame while throwing pumpkin bombs at you. He's kind of hard to hit in this phase, so I found the best way to deal with him here was to use Spider-Man's special web attack with its wide range to deal damage to him. His third phase is the same as his first, so you just have to punish him with your attacks.
One green goblin.
For the Kingpin, just try taking out his henchmen first and avoid his charge. I found that he was susceptible to my swing attack here. Sandman will come up real close before attacking. The best way to counter him is to use your jump swing attack to get behind him before he does this. And then there's the big bad, Dr. Doom. He has 4 phases, so just when you think you've beaten him, surprise, you didn't. His first phase is pretty easy, just watch out for his, electric slide. His second phase is the hardest, and of course it's the platforming fight, and that's mainly because, again, you're too slow to dodge his attacks. His third phase is the same as his first, and in his final phase, he'll gain the ability to charge up and fire an energy blast that deals major damage. The good part about this is that it does take a couple of seconds for him to charge, and it can be easily avoided. And then all you have to do is just start pounding on him and don't let up. And even after defeating Dr. Doom, it's still not over. You'll have to go up against a bunch of Venom clones, which apparently Dr. Doom created by using the Sorcerer's Stone. I felt like this boss fight was kind of unnecessary, and it did feel like a gotcha moment. Now, all in all, I do enjoy this game, but I also had some gripes with it. It is one of the slowest beat-em-ups that I have ever played. The swapping between beat-em-up and the platformer mechanic is neat, but I also don't love the platforming sections. They just kind of feel unnecessary. I also noticed some unresponsive controls in this game. There were plenty of times where I would go for my special move and it just wouldn't happen. And to be perfectly honest, I still don't exactly know how to do my jumping swing attack. I think you need to push a direction and attack while jumping, but there were also a bunch of times where I did this and it just didn't work the way I wanted it to. I do think the visuals here are really, really well done. It has some gorgeous detailed pixel art with huge sprites. And to me, that's the main draw of this game. I feel like most people don't even know that this game exists. It kind of feels like it was in the arcade for a couple months before it just got pushed out and replaced by something new. And now it's time to find out how much I spent on beating Spider-Man the arcade, or Spider-Man the video game if we're being official. Now for these games, I play them on their default settings on emulator, and I set up a counter to increase every time that I start or continue. Now for Spider-Man, this game defaulted to 25 cents, which does track for a 1991 beat-em-up. When it was all said and done, it took me $4 or 16 plays to beat Spider-Man, and adjusted for inflation, spending $4 in 1991 would feel like spending $9.88 today. And just for reference, I am filming this video in July of 2026. It took me just about 50 minutes to beat Spider-Man the arcade, which is pretty long for a beat 'em up. This brought my cost per minute to just 8 cents, which is really low. For the bosses, I spent 25 cents or 1 credit on Venom in platformer mode, 25 cents or 1 credit on Electro, 25 cents or 1 credit on Green Goblin, 25 cents or 1 credit on Doc Ock, 25 cents or 1 credit on Kingpin, and $1 or 4 credits on Dr. Doom, bringing my boss total to $2.25. And now it's time to bust out the predatory game scale to determine just how fair Spider-Man was when it came to taking your money. So this one's a little bit hard to place because I can count a lot of predatory practices in this game, yet we only spent $4 and it only cost us a measly 8 cents per minute to beat this game. So that tells me that this game, for all of its flaws, does do a pretty good job of balance. And well, if we've seen anything from Sega's track record in the arcade, most of their games are pretty fair when compared to other developers. Most of them. So let's break it down a little bit. The gameplay is just okay to me. There is a lot left to be desired here. The slow movement and the unresponsive controls did bother me. Being a fan of Spider-Man and Marvel Comics, I did enjoy seeing the other Spider-Man villains in the game. If this were just a generic arcade game with the same gameplay mechanics, I probably wouldn't be as invested. So that did keep me a little bit more engaged. It also does help that the pixel art was as good as it was, and large sprites are always really nice to see. The constantly depleting health is a predatory mechanic that I really dislike. I would like to note, though, that it does count down rather slowly, and I think because there are so many health pickups, you kind of don't really notice it. However, I played this solo, and if I were to play it with more players, then it may become a fight for these pickups, and then they just become a lot more scarce. There is no learning curve. If you've ever played a beat 'em up, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. The continue system is also pretty normal. It doesn't start you off at the beginning of a level or give you limited continues or anything like that. As long as you have the bankroll, you can keep playing this game. The bosses do have a lot of gotcha moments where you think you beat them, but then you actually didn't. Thankfully, they're all mostly easy.
Mostly.
So this doesn't really bother me that much. I do think there are moments where there is either unavoidable damage or damage that is just extremely hard to avoid, simply because you move at a glacial pace. And the fact that this game is only kind of fun does bump it up the scale a little bit for me. But also because of how little I spent, I can't really put this up that high, but I think it's got to go somewhere in the middle. Sega could have easily made this more punishing and they didn't, or they could have at least sped the characters up a bit more, or I don't know, added a dash attack, and that's something they didn't do either. I really think this game is one dash away from being a good game rather than just an okay game. So with all of that considered, I'm going to give Spider-Man a 4 out of 10 on the predatory game scale. Do you agree or disagree with my rankings? Sound off in the comments below to let me know, and I will do my best to reply. Now, can you play Spider-Man the video game today? Nay, you cannot. This game was never released on home console, so the only way you get to play it is if you get your hands on it in the wild, or if you emulate it. I feel like this game would have been a great addition to the Marvel Maximum collection that came out, but it wasn't added there, and I feel like this is probably due to licensing issues with Sega. Next time on Arcade Economy, we're headed to Earth. That's Earth with a U, as we play through Atari's Dino Fighter Primal Rage. So be sure to check back for that one. Hey guys, thanks for checking out this video. I really wanted to like this game, and I do like some things about it, but I just feel like it needed a little bit more time to cook. I also feel like if this came out during the height of the Spider-Man the Animated Series, it probably would have been in arcades a little bit more and been a little bit more popular and given it a little bit more longevity. But I digress. Anyway, a huge shout out to all of the Patreon and YouTube member producers. You guys know who you are. Jake Weed, Tanner Trezza, Pezmage, John Forhan, Smash Jackson, Gregory Hines, The Badger Knight, Tupalev, and Novice Brad. And hey, if you would like to support the channel, you can become a YouTube member or a patron on Patreon. VIP viewer level and above will get all of my videos early and ad-free, plus a director's cut of Arcade Economy with more footage around the game's history. And joining at the producer level will get your name shouted out by me at the end of each video. And you'll also get extra members-only videos from me as well. But also, just you watching helps me out a ton, so thank you so much. That'll do it for me, guys. If you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't, and hopefully you guys will see me on my next video. Thank you for watching.